Call to meeting the January 23rd meeting of the Paramount City Council. Can I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gian. Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Martinez. Mayor Lemons.
Here, and Vice Mayor Martinez called. She's going to be here. She's just running a little late. And at this time, we have City Council public comment updates. Do we have anything, John?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do. At the last council meeting, at the January 9th council meeting, Ms. Tammy Cagley came up and discussed with the council car clubs that were causing disturbances at Paramount Park. Staff spoke with Ms. Cagley immediately after her presentation to the council, and we assured her that the city does not give formal permission to car clubs, as she had asked, for use of the park for this type of purpose. We explained to her we're also working on revised rules for the parks, which could address this use if legal. And we assured her that the deputies will continue to patrol the parks for this type of disturbances, namely Paramount Park, where she reported this to us.
So if somebody, a car club is assembling there, is there a recourse by the resident to send the sheriffs over there, or not at this time until the rules are adopted?
It's kind of, and I'll defer to the sheriff's department, it's a touchy one because if it's declared an unlawful assembly, from what I'm being told, if it fits those parameters, yes, they can. But if they're just simply enjoying the park, like any other park goer, that might be a difficult issue. But let me defer to the lieutenant.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Madam Mayor. I happen to be the watch commander both times that the car club had a gathering there. And yes, the citizens can call and just call the station, let us know. And what I did both times, I sent out 2 sergeants with probably 4 or 5 deputies and a few CSOs from Paramount Station. And every car that was parked illegally, we made them leave the park. And that's the big thing. If you have families there and they're parked legally and they're just enjoying a barbecue, that's one thing. But if they're out there, they have their cars and they have them lifted, or they're parked illegally or turned or on the red curves, then we just make everybody leave and we stop the whole thing. But they can call anytime and we'll send a supervisor out with deputies.
And the other thing too, if I may, Madam Mayor, is Ms. Cagley was complaining of the loud music because it was early in the morning. So if the cops do roll up and there is loud music, they can go over and tell them to turn it down. Of course, we don't know if they're going to turn it back up after that, but that is definitely one thing that they can address once they do approach them. So.
Okay, that's good. Hello, Captain. How nice to have you with us this evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Your knee better?
All better. I feel great, as a matter of fact. Best thing I ever did.
Oh, wonderful.
So happy.
We'll move into public comments. Do we have cards?
We do. We have one public comment card from Mr. Damon Honecker, and he'd like to discuss with the council the direction of Paramount. Mr. Honecker?
Council, my name is Damon Honecker. As we are in 2018, I share feelings that so many residents of the city, it is time to refresh the city hall, and the city council must show respect and the concerns of the well and residents during the current coalition crisis that brings negative attention to the city of Paramount. Several of your votes last year raised red flags by the many residents in our community. For this reason, I am serving the council members Peggy Lemons, Diane Martinez not here, in the council chambers, notice of intention to circulate and recall the petition calling for recall or removal of the office. I am one of the opponents seeking a removal of office. I'm now serving you.
Okay, you can
May I
hold on to
approach?
it, and I'll come down and get it after the
May I
meeting.
approach?
Pardon me?
May I approach?
No, I will come down and get it from you after the meeting, though.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into new business, and we have our first oral report on public safety.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. As you know, every year we give you an update on the previous year's statistics when it comes to crime and public safety responses. So as you'll see coming up here in a few minutes, we experienced an overall decrease in Part 1 crimes last year when compared to 2016. However, there were a few categories of crime that saw some increases, and today, as you heard here, we do have our captain from the Lakewood Regional Station here to answer all of your questions. But before we do that, our Public Safety Director, Ms. Adriana Lopez, will give you the data. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. This evening, I will be giving you an overview of the 2007 year in review as it pertains to our Public Safety Department and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. We will be discussing important statistical data as it relates to property crimes and crimes against people. In the presentation, we will compare statistical data from 2016 to 2017. And we will also discuss response times and calls for service. Okay, well, I will start by giving you a basic definition of Uniform Crime Report, also referred to as UCR. This is a nationwide statistical method of reporting crime to the FBI, and it's used by over 18,000 law enforcement agencies. Once this information is provided to the FBI, they create and publish a very comprehensive report of this information. And they also divide it into two categories: property crime and crime against persons. The entire report could be found on their website, which is ucr.fbi.gov. As John mentioned, we saw a total decrease of 6% in Part 1 crimes. Now, Part 1 crimes are divided into two categories, as mentioned. Crimes against persons, which includes homicide, rape, aggravated assault, and robbery. In that category, we saw a slight increase. And once we reviewed the information, we realized that we had a change or an increase in homicides. In 2016, we had 4, and in 2017, we had 6. Out of those 6 homicides, 5 actually occurred in 2017, and 1 was a result of a shooting that occurred in 1992, where the victim passed away in 2017. In addition to that, we also saw an increase in aggravated assaults. In that category, we saw a significant amount of assaults that were domestic violence nature, also assaults against children at the hands of the caregiver. In addition to that, we also saw 4 assaults against peace officers. In property crimes, we saw a decrease. Property crimes include burglary, theft, auto theft, and arson. This is a snapshot of our 10-year history of Part 1 crimes. As you can see, since 2008 to 2017, we saw a total decrease of 18%. In 2015, 2016, we did see an upward trend. In 2017, we started bringing that number again down. We hope to continue that trend in 2018. Here we have a snapshot of our calls for service. So we have emergency calls, and those calls can be anything from medical emergencies to crimes that are occurring, and by crimes I mean it could be property or also a crime against a person that is occurring at that time. Then we also have priority calls. With priority calls, that includes calls that have just occurred, and we also have routine calls. There isn't a significant change in the amount of calls that we received from 2017 to 2016. Response times, again, there's not a significant change from 2016 to 2017. We saw a slight increase in emergency calls as well as priority calls, but we did see a decrease in routine calls. Some of the reasons why we saw a decrease in routine calls, we believe because we have a very strong...
Excuse me, Adriana. Can you guys take that to the hallway if you need to discuss something so we can hear the report? Thank you. Go ahead, Adriana.
I'm sorry. Routine calls, we saw a slight decrease, and that could be because we have a very strong non-sworn personnel in our city that allows the deputies to dedicate their time to emergent calls. So our non-sworn personnel can answer parking calls, traffic collisions without severe injuries where it's just property damage. And so we believe that really helps our response times. Our public safety department and our LASD team, we meet together and we discuss different types of deployment strategies. As you can see here, we have the basic deployment, supplemental deployment, and overtime deployment. With our basic deployment, these are the vehicles or the cars that are out there responding to calls for service. This is a minimum deployment staffing level. We have 10 56-hour cars and also 2 40-hour cars. In addition to that, we have a supplemental deployment, which includes 5 special assignment deputies. That will include 4 SAOs and our park deputy. We also have a special assignment sergeant that oversees the special assignment deputies. And we also have a dedicated traffic patrol unit, and those hours can vary. For the supplemental deployment team, their schedule can vary. So they could start early in the morning, late in the evening, and they basically deal with quality of life issues. You may recall that in the current fiscal year, we moved the hours from our dedicated motorcycle traffic deputy into overtime deployment. And that's why if we move over to the overtime deployment, you see a significant amount of hours that were dedicated to traffic enforcement. And we have over 1,400 hours of crime suppression. That's usually what we refer to as our 136 X-ray car. And that car is deployed different hours, once again, depending on the call volume and to alleviate some of the calls that regular patrol has to address. And in the trend of always addressing quality of life issues in the city, we continue to deploy our noise enforcement or noise disturbance enforcement, also known as a party enforcement car. In our calendar year, they were deployed over 450 hours. And then we also continue to have our vendor enforcement, and they were out there for 150 hours, slightly over 150 hours. And as part of our overhead, we also have a dedicated lieutenant, 1 DB sergeant, and 6 detectives. As you can see here, this is a more detailed slide where it shows you what we've used as part of our traffic enforcement. Our deputies who sign up for traffic enforcement, they're asked to spend the majority of their time on the major streets, major boulevards, and target motorists who are in violation of these traffic violations, speeding, reckless driving. This continues to be a major concern for our residents here, so we want to make sure that we're addressing that in a timely fashion. We also have a grant through the Office of Traffic Safety. The county oversees that grant, but we coordinate for DUI checkpoints as well as sobriety traffic enforcement. We also refer to that as saturation patrol. And those different operations have led to 20 arrests. Because of all these different strategies and all these different hours that we allocate to the residents of Paramount and making sure that they feel safe in the city of Paramount, we have seen an increase of 16% in arrest. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And the captain and the station lieutenant are both here as well.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. Do you have questions? Nope. Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to the oral report on our Gang Resistance is Paramount program, GRIP.
Great. As we know, Councilman, Mayor, and council members, the GRIP program is definitely an institution in Paramount. For over 30 years, we've run the Gang Resistance is Paramount program in Paramount Unified School District classrooms. Many kids have gone through the program over the years. This program has been quite effective in lowering gang crime, as you'll soon hear from David Johnson. So while the city's gang issue has changed quite a bit since the beginning of GRIP, the GRIP program hasn't. So what we're doing tonight is we're proposing some substantial changes to the program, which would start next school year. But before we tinker with the program, we wanted to bring it before you to show you what we plan to do. So if the City Council does agree with these, with this direction we're proposing for the GRIP program, we'll be working with the Youth Commission as well as the Paramount Unified School District on these proposed changes. So with that, I'll turn it over to David Johnson, our Parks and Rec Director, to handle the item. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. Let's see, we'll go to the next slide. So we're all very familiar with our past history from the 1980s, where in 1982 Rand declared us a disaster city. And a lot of that had to do, obviously, with the high level of gang activity in Paramount at that time. The city council at that time responded. They met with the community to identify the problems and possible solutions. And from that originated the GRIP program, led by its developer, Tony Ostos. So beginning in 1982, the first anti-gang lessons were taught to all fifth graders in Paramount Unified School District. The GRIP program has undergone minor changes over this time. Originally, it was started off as alternatives to gang membership, AT-GM, and then eventually morphed into GRIP, Gang Resistance is Paramount, in the early 2000s. But back in 1985, we did add a follow-up course for seventh graders, and in 1990, we added a second grade program. So you had a second grade program and a fifth grade program, and then a follow-up program in seventh grade. In 1997, that seventh grade follow-up program was moved to the ninth grade. So, what is GRIP? GRIP is a series of lessons taught directly to Paramount Unified School District students in their schools and in their classrooms during the regular school instructional period. These lessons highlight the negative consequences of gangs in our community and to them personally and to the lives of their fellow students. It gives students guidance on how to avoid peer pressure that can draw them into this negative life choice. It was and is a very unique program. It's about preventing gang membership in the first place. So again, you see a lot of programs, they do not deal with that side. We are a preventative program and involved in extremely high commitment from both the city and from the Paramount Unified School District. The program is taught by city staff. We are in their classrooms throughout the year, second, fifth grade, and currently ninth grade as well. We've traditionally provided individual and family counseling as well, directly from requests from the school district and direct requests from parents. You see the originator, Tony Ostos, on the left. Again, he is the one that developed this program. He mentored Yesenia Guillen, and Yesenia Guillen on the right is currently the one that is running the GRIP program. So what we currently do with our program, we are in every second grade classroom in the district, and we teach them 8 individual lessons. So every second grade class gets 8 lessons on anti-gang behavior, or anti-gang lessons. The fifth grade gets 11 lessons in this topic, and then in ninth grade, we're at the ninth grade campus for a week in their PE classes doing a follow-up program. And again, we continue to offer parent gang awareness and prevention meetings. We teach this program, or the program uses videos, posters, and other instructional material that emphasizes the consequences of gang involvement. Much of it is very dated, and we'll be working to update those posters and those videos and that other materials to make it a little more modern and up-to-date and relevant. This poster is an example that highlights the relationship between gangs and tattoos. As we all know, tattoos are more of a social norm now. It's not related directly to gangs like it was in the 80s. So this is the kind of things that we have to make it more relevant and more modern. We are no longer going to teach things that all tattoos are gang related. They're not bad. Because we had cases where the kids, well, my mom and dad have a tattoo. So it just has to be updated because it's not clear anymore. We don't have that clear distinction of how it was in the 80s. We will always emphasize, obviously, the most negative consequences of gang involvement. That will never change. So we'll continue to do this. So the GRIP, what we're going to propose, again, GRIP will stay the same. It will always be GRIP. Now this poster that we use, this kind of emphasizes that gangs have changed in Paramount. This is not the look that you see in Paramount anymore. This is what you saw in the 80s, but this is not what Paramount gangs look like anymore. The poster is an example that clothing style from the 80s is not what we see anymore, and our public safety team tells us, obviously, they've changed, they've morphed a little bit, they've changed so they can stay under the law enforcement radar. So again, a lot of stuff is really heavily out of date. However, the program, since its inception, and there's been 5 studies that showed this, that has been very successful in teaching our young people to stay out of gangs. So it did its job, and it continues to do its job, that it is a prevention program, and it is making sure kids see and make rational choices that gang involvement is something they do not want to get involved in. So our 30 years of GRIP, what we can say has been accomplished is that crisis from the 1980s has been eliminated. Not just solely with GRIP, but obviously with all the public safety strategies employed by the city over the years, has been very effective. We went from what was in the 1980s, 1,000 to 1,500 active gang members in the city with 7 active gangs, is now down to less than 100 active gang members in 2 active gangs. We used to get requests again from the schools all the time for counseling for individual students and parents because of their child's gang involvement. We no longer get those requests from the school district. We haven't for years. They deal more with social media and bullying issues on campus and less so with any gang issues. And then just overall, there's a much less gang involvement community-wide. So some of these youth behaviors that we feel we need to start addressing would be social media, bullying, and civic responsibility. We did take this to the ad hoc committee. They did take a look at it, they reviewed it. We also have briefly mentioned this to our youth commission, and we would like their involvement in developing these new strategies, and obviously with the school district will be involved as well. So what we're proposing is GRIP will stay. We will retain the 2nd and 5th grade program. We will reduce 2nd grade lessons from 8 lessons to 4. The 5th grade will reduce lessons from 11 to 6. We will continue to focus on obviously the personal costs of gang behavior, but we'll also include in more elements involving bullying, social media behavior, as well as that are negative to our kids. So we want to tie into also the district teaches a safe and civil program at their schools during the regular school day. So we want to tie into that and have similar instruction. So in addition to GRIP, those resources that we're backing off of GRIP, we want to redeploy into our middle schools. We visited a program that does this in Santa Clarita. It's called Defy It. And they engage the students with positive learning experiences, and we're hoping to replicate that. So our 5th graders will graduate GRIP. So they finished the GRIP program in 5th grade, and they're going to be encouraged to join this middle school club that will meet on a monthly basis during their lunch hour. Students will be engaged with very fun activities that will instruct them in positive social and civic behavior, including issues, we want to increase their self-esteem, want them to be kind to each other. We want them to be able to have environmental justice, make sure you pick up your trash. These little minor things in our community that students don't seem to be engaged in anymore. We want to encourage positive social media behavior, volunteerism, and giving back to your community. We'll use things like excursions to reward students that attend on a regular basis. So again, what we're trying to do here is make sure that we did our job. We will continue to do our job. We'll keep and encourage the kids to stay out of gangs, but now we want to have that element that teaches them and leads them towards very positive social and civic behavior. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for David?
We also, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, we also have the school resource deputy in the back, Deputy Mike Abbott, who can tell you a little bit more if you have more questions about the activity going on campus.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Mr. Hanson.
Yeah, Dave, the lessons, where you're reducing from 8 to 4, say, in the 2nd grade, how long is each lesson? Is it like an hour long?
It's the length of a class period.
Okay, and then if you're going to go to 4, is that 4 right in a row or once a week, or how does that work?
They're not immediately in a row. They would engage over a period of weeks to have those lessons.
So it'd be spread out over a period of
Yes.
time? Okay.
Anyone else? Okay.
Deputy Abbott to see what he thinks about the program or what he has seen over the years.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. GRIP was an excellent, excellent concept, has been, and it's worked great for years, but we all know that times have changed. And the things that GRIP is not dealing with are the things that we deal with today on a daily basis, whether it be at home or at school. So the concept, by changing it or modifying it, was just to include all. So nothing that never mentions social media or certain things have changed. So that's why we're trying to update it and modify it to be more current, to make it more current. So great concept, GRIP's been very successful, and the idea is just to make it better, not to change that much of it.
Thank you, Deputy Abbott. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to large item pickup.
Great. Notes here.
Yes, as you know, we've seen it all around town, as you can see these two pictures here. At some time or another, a couch, a mattress, or other junk that's sitting on the sidewalk or an alleyway that's abandoned. For almost a decade, we've had an abandoned large item pickup program. And this came after hearing from residents and businesses and experiencing it ourselves. We instituted this program. Today, we're bringing this item before you to remind and explain to you the parameters of the program and review the program's effectiveness. As always, we want your feedback and suggestions to improve this service, as it has a direct correlation to the look of our community. But before we begin, I wanted to give you the statistics on our first, what we hope will be our annual clutter-free Paramount drop-off day that we had on Saturday at Paramount Park. We had 262 cars come through the event, and we collected 23 tons of large items. So it's quite a bit to do in a matter of 5 hours. So we're declaring this a success for our first time out. We'll improve upon it in the upcoming years, and our hope is that people will be encouraged to take advantage of this free program, and that we brought a sense of awareness to the proper way to dispose of large items, that is, bring it to the pickup or some other means, and that the community looks better. That's a whole purpose. So that's a special thanks to the volunteers who donated their time to this event, and also to our waste hauler, Calmet Services, who's in the audience tonight, for donating the bins, the disposal, and the labor for this event. So with that, now I'll hand it over to Chris Cash to go over the large item removal program. Chris?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of the council. So dealing with large items and things such as furniture, car parts, things of that sort that have been dumped on our streets and sidewalks and in the alleys has always been a significant issue for the Public Works Department. As John mentioned, the current iteration of where we're at is about 10 years old, but we've been dealing with that throughout my whole 20 years in the department, and I'm sure we were dealing with it before that. We've just sort of made some tweaks along the way to try to improve things and make it better. At one point, the volume of large items was so much that it did create a manpower issue for our department. But also, more importantly, there was nothing in place to really try and stem the behavior and to channel property owners and residents into an appropriate way to dispose of large items, and to provide education of the programs that we had in place to try and get things to be done in maybe a more orderly fashion. Prior to our current program and working with our partners at CalMet, Public Works staff would pick up large items without question or consequence all over the city. Many property owners and residents really didn't, I think, for the most part, understand that was not an acceptable practice. And there was really no incentive in place for residents to remove these items properly. So with ordinance number 1004, the bulky waste material disposal ordinance, this was sort of a means for us to try and improve this issue in the community, and to try and put a framework in place to better deal with it. So our large item program is really focusing on changing behavior. Instilling in property owners responsibility for things dumped on or around their property, particularly if you are a landlord or property manager, the idea that you are responsible for your tenants. As I mentioned previously, the program is trying to have residents utilize the proper channels for disposal of large items, and that's namely arranging to have those picked up with our trash hauler, CalMet. This is important that we also partner with CalMet to pick up large items that are dumped. The partnership was out of necessity, as our manpower was being severely strained by the demand for large item removal, to the point where other critical maintenance needs were being compromised. Also, we did have several workers' comp issues that made us question the safety of having our employees as the primary source of this service. Finally, the program did create the means of doing some sort of cost recovery for the service, although I do want to emphasize that this really isn't the focus of the program, but we do need to have some penalty in place, again, to promote proper large item disposal. So large items are removed by CalMet through a formal program where items can be scheduled for pickup by residents and or placed on a pickup list by the city. And really our goal is, again, to have property owners utilize the formal program. Items that are found on the parkways or alleys will be tagged, which is a means of saying pretty much you need to remove that item from that area and use the proper channel. We will follow up 24 hours later to see if the item has been removed, and in most cases it has. But if it hasn't, the item will be removed by either city staff or CalMet, and a letter will be sent to the property owner along with a fee will be charged of $50 for that service. In 2017, between city staff and CalMet, we picked up over 662 tons of large items, and we've picked up 2,400 tons since 2011. So to put this in a little other context, as we were sort of kicking this around the other day, it'd be as though we removed 545 African elephants from the city during that same time period. And that's just also to say that that amount has pretty much increased from year to year to year. Some of that may be as a result of us being better at corralling it, but it's also, I think, indicative of the continuance of this issue in the community. There are still many situations where city staff will remove large items. If it's not clearly in front of a single property, if it's left in an alley and can't necessarily be tracked back to a particular property, if it's blocking a street, or it's a public safety concern, then obviously we do pick those up right away. Occasionally, we do get repeat offenders, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And generally, the issue with those is that we will take those and then forward those on to code enforcement, where they have some more severe consequences that can be exercised. But honestly, that really doesn't happen that often. Education and creating a sense of personal responsibility has really been the goal of the program. We spend a lot of time talking with residents and explaining the process to them. We also do a lot of outreach, including door hangers, using our social media posts, using our various city publications. And we've also even, using the Paramount Works app, has become a very effective tool for, again, for trying to target where these things are. In fact, we have a video which Jonathan's going to show, which kind of shows how the large items fit into that program.
Hey guys, what's up? So today we are going to be showing you how to use an app for the city of Paramount called Paramount Works. And this is how it works. If you see it, snap it. Did you hear about the movie that came out? It was yesterday, right?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
The Batman versus Superman?
Yeah.
Okay, have you seen it?
Yeah, actually went to go see with Scarlett.
Why didn't you invite? What is this? People always do this. They have literally they have little places in the grocery store where you can put the grocery cart. And then the furniture, I don't know why people always leave the furniture out. Like, come on.
That looks really, really trashy.
It really does.
I have an idea.
What?
I have the app.
What app?
Paramount Works.
What is that?
You don't know what that is?
No.
Oh my goodness. Let me show you.
Step 1, snap a photo of the issue.
Step 2, choose the issue type.
Step 3, optional, add a comment of the issue.
Step 4, pinpoint the location and submit it.
And there you have it. Public Works has arrived.
You can download this free app on Google Play or the App Store to help keep your city safe and clean. When you see it, snap it.
Kids are so great.
Anyways, that being said, actually for Public Works, the two biggest areas that we do get work orders through the app are graffiti and large items, that sort of thing. So it's been a pretty nice tool that sort of came along in the midst of this program being in place, and has really been a way for us to try and get to things quicker. We have found that large item pickup program is very effective for single-family residences and the smaller multifamily duplex, 4 units or less. In those type of properties, people pretty much will take action quickly. Owner-occupied properties tend to have a quicker response for illegal items that are dumped, and to a violation notice if it is left by the city. It's the larger multifamily properties that are a bit harder to corral. Part of the issue stems from the charge that CalMet places on large item pickup for multifamily properties than for the single-family properties, which are free and included as part of your charge for that service. For owners and tenants of large properties, CalMet does provide a pickup service for large items at $17 for the first item and $9 for each additional item. Our experience has indicated that basically if an owner or tenant is willing to go through the process of calling and scheduling that service through CalMet, they become discouraged when they realize that it's not free like the single-family residences and that there is a charge involved. And this, as a result, does create, I think, less incentive to use the program. To complicate matters, the larger complexes, when multiple units become vacant at the end of the month, landlords may find it cheaper to pay the $50 that we charge to pick it up rather than utilizing the service from CalMet. So this is an area that we are sort of kicking around, and we know that we need to make some changes to some things, and we're trying to explore some ways to kind of make it a little more consistent with maybe the service that we do have for the single-family home. As I mentioned, we do charge a fee, which is $50. However, again, the goal of the program really has not been about cost recovery, but rather to emphasize resident responsibility. We interact with property owners all the time. We have somebody who's out every day, who's tagging things and going back. And we have several times a week where we have phone calls or property owners come in. And, in a lot of cases, once we explain to them that, yeah, you are responsible for it if it's dumped in front of your property, more often than not, people will want to avoid the hassle again in the future, and they will take care of it. Since 2016, we have issued 95 invoices for large item pickup, but relative to the number of items that we have dealt with, this is actually a very, very small fraction of the total items removed. And again, when we have repeat people, we have people who are just real difficult in terms of wanting to comply with this, then they are multiple repeat offenders, then that's when we will turn it over to public safety, who can then go down the administrative citation route, and there's more stringent actions that can be taken through sort of that arm of the city. So overall, the large item program has shown some effectiveness, but as with many of our programs, it's an ongoing project. There are some areas where improvements need to be made, particularly in relation to the large multifamily residences, but we do strive to capture as many things as we can, but just as many things happen, just as graffiti, patterns change. Streets that didn't have issues may at one point have an issue, or streets that have issues, that gets resolved. And so we try to be flexible, we try to be responsive when we get calls about things. We do have our people that are sort of out canvassing, looking for those things as well. And we try to adjust where we can to deal with the problems as quickly as possible. This program has basically given us a good framework to work with, but again, it is sort of a living, breathing thing, and we're always looking to improve and better manage this problem in the community. So with that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Questions?
Chris, I'd like to know how many Paramount Work apps have we received?
Oh, thousands.
Press
Thousands. I don't have the exact number, but I just know because I get copied on them, all of them, and it's thousands.
We could definitely pull that
Yeah.
information for you, Vice Mayor,
That's
and
all
then
right.
give it to the council in the Friday memo, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, our next item is the proposed special events calendar for 2018.
Believe it or not, it's time to talk about Christmas. As we kick off 2018, we actually wanted to show you the dates of all the planned special events, not just Christmas, but all the other ones, so you can kind of get a feel for when they're coming up, and just kind of a comprehensive list of the events. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave Johnson to handle the item. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members, I do not want to talk about Christmas. It's too close. So we have before you tonight, we're going to give you a complete list of our city events and city co-sponsored events with the various service clubs and local groups. So we start off the year with Tepic Sister City. So one of our service clubs is the one that leads the way. They hold their Dia del Niño event. This year will be March 31st. And then we just have a series of events. The PEP Sponsor Social, that's the one where we invite the donors to our PEP Scholarship Program. Again, Elton Memorial Service Club, again, involved with, we're co-sponsoring an event with them. We have the city dedicated events that we do alone, kick off with our Heritage Day Festival. This last year was our 60th anniversary event. This now will morph into every year our signature Heritage Day Festival. This year will be June 16th. We then go right into our summer concerts. Now, the National Night Out actually is not handled by Recreation. That's our Public Safety Department that handles that. And then, again, our service club, Tepic Sister City, holds an event in the fall with their Dia de los Muertos. And we then also hold our Halloween and Haunted House event. Now, so Veterans Day, we don't have a date for this yet. We are still, we're hoping, and we will be meeting with our local American Legion, Tepic Sister City, and the Elks to discuss our vision of a Veterans Day event. We are looking at holding an event at Paramount Park that will look completely different than the current Elks Memorial Day event here at our Memorial Plaza. It would be much more of a living history kind of event where kids can see and touch past and current military equipment and speak to reenactors. We will, of course, still work towards the other items that we shared with the City Council on how we would honor our veterans. We'll have summer programming discounts. We're working on getting local business discounts. We'll have some Veteran Day or veteran-only parking at our city parks, and we'll be doing articles in the Pulse Beat and around town. And then we currently have the pet adoption program as well. And then let me go back. And then following Veterans Day, we go into Thanksgiving, and we go into the holiday event. So I want to deal with the holiday events separately, and we end it with Breakfast with Santa. So our holiday events, we always kick them off with a tree lighting, and it always is the first Wednesday after the Thanksgiving holiday. And then immediately after tree lighting, we go into the Santa train, and then right after the Santa train, we do Breakfast with Santa. So what we're proposing for 2018, because of the way it's working right now, the Santa train is occurring in that first week of December. So right now there's a conflict, as we've had in the last few years, where it conflicts with the December council meeting. We're recommending that city council meeting get moved to December 11th to accommodate the train. And we're also recommending going dark in December for the city council study session. Now, as I mentioned, the Breakfast with Santa event always falls that Saturday right after the train. We are recommending this year that because of a favorable calendar, that we can move that event to December 15th. And so it's still far enough away from Christmas. It gives the recreation staff just a little bit of a break and a little bit of a breather before we go into that final event. And it also helps us with part-time staffing issues. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Quick motion to approve the item.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian?
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay, next we'll move into committee reports from council members. Do we have any? Councilman Dan, anything you want to report or say?
I just wanted to give a brief update on Aniplex, and as you know, last year we had rulemaking for 1430, which dealt with the grinding of the metal industry. After 1430, AQMD started working on 1469. Because there were some concerns, as you know, Aniplex had went to abatement court, and there was the 1 nanogram that they weren't supposed to exceed. And we all know that that has happened, and then they have to curtail their production. Over the Christmas holiday, the Rule 1469 was postponed. And during that postponement, they realized that, or they were informed that hexavalent chromium in Europe has been outlawed altogether. So 1 nanogram in Europe is it's a no-go. But the thing that they were able to find out is that they had to change procedures. And so now our state legislature, along with the other metal industries dealing with 1469, are in talks to change the way they do their production to stop putting out hexavalent chromium altogether. And by changing the way they do the process, that would eliminate hexavalent chromium from anodizers, which is good news. And they're looking into low government loans in order to help a place like Anaplex, and there's 19 across Southern California, just one in Paramount, help them get loans to change their procedures altogether. So that's good news for residents of Paramount who have to deal with hexavalent chromium. Eventually, maybe we'll be like Europe in the United States and outlaw hexavalent chromium altogether. So I just wanted to give you that update, only because when we talk about lowering hexavalent chromium, the way that they lower hexavalent chromium is by using fume suppressants. And so what they found out is these fume suppressants to lower hexavalent chromium are actually equally or more dangerous than the hexavalent chromium, which is PCBs and dioxides. So in the area of research, we're coming a long way. So I just wanted to say it's good news for Paramount.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanson, anything?
Well, yeah, I might say something about the Vector Control Board. I mean, it's been somewhat quiet.
That's a good thing.
Well, somewhat quiet, actually. They're still having some problems, and they're gearing up at this point to start the mosquito abatement processes. And if anyone has a problem with mosquitoes, they're urged to call them, and the people will respond and check it out. But it was a pretty nasty year, the last year, for West Nile virus throughout the whole area.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Martinez, anything? Nope. Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yeah, this past Saturday, I had the privilege of going down on the Paramount Workday and going down to the park and helping unload trailers and the mattresses and stuff and throw it in dumpsters and stuff like that. Excuse me, and stuff like that. And I just want to say I met a bunch of great kids working at this program and all energetic, and I just can't thank CalMet enough for providing all the dumpsters, and hope you got rid of all the trash, because there was a lot of trash. I think maybe one thing we could do is we could put out that tires are not allowed, because we had a lot of people come in there with tires that were turned away. So I think maybe we should maybe put that out, that we don't allow tires and stuff like that on days like that. Other than that, it was a great success. I left after about 92 people that came in and dumped stuff out, but I heard there was over 200, so it's a great day. Good program.
Yeah,
Mayor Lemons, I also attended the Clutter-Free Paramount. And like council members stated, our youngsters, the ROTC from Paramount High School, they were wonderful in volunteering their time. And many residents coming to dump their clutter, so it was a win-win situation for all of us. I also attended, I am now a certified tree steward. 2 Saturdays ago, I attended the training to become a tree steward. And matter of fact, they stated, Chris, that the tree planting date is going to be April 28th. So we'll be, Public Works or their organization will be planting the trees. So there's probably 40 residents and some from neighboring cities that joined us on Saturday.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I was at the tree planting event too, and I know a lot of people were talking about Paramount becoming a tree city, and I know that we were doing the application for that. So I was going to ask Chris, do we have an ETA on when certification can happen, or when we'll hear if we passed all the checklists?
We have one last thing, which is actually to have a proclamation to commemorate Arbor Day and to have an Arbor Day event, which will be the event that Vice Mayor Martinez mentioned. Once we have that, then we have all the little things in place. We have the ordinance, we spend the money, and so that's the one last thing that we still have to do.
So we have to host the event in April 1st before we qualify?
Right, and we'll bring a proclamation to the council as well.
Okay. I also attended the Disadvantaged Communities Conference recently, and they had a lot of really good information available there, especially on programs that are available through Cap and Trade. And piggybacking on what Councilmember Gian said, I'm hoping maybe some of these cap and trade dollars can help something like the Anaplex issue. Maybe these businesses can apply to upgrade to what they need to do to stop their emissions. So I'm going to be checking back with the people I met at that thing at the conference and see if that's a possibility. I was at the tree planting ceremony too, and it was nice that I had already attended the Disadvantaged Communities event because part of what they talked about was urban forestry. So it helped me be a little in touch with what was happening while we were all being made tree stewards. And I learned that I've been watering my trees wrong forever, and it's no wonder so many of my plants die. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Also, the company that was here that did a program, I think it's been about a month ago, on the solar roofing, they were there again. So I had a long conversation with the woman who's in charge of that event about being able, they only got 2 signups in Paramount, and so I'm going to be working with her to hopefully get more people signed up and do a more in-depth program. Being completely free as it is, I think it will be really advantageous to the community, and if anybody out there is interested in the program, I have the details on it. If you qualify financially, it's absolutely free installation and could lower, your utility bills, electric bills significantly. And then I just wanted to say how beautiful that I think the banners look on the boulevard. I saw them today with the art pieces on them.
Oh.
Yeah, they really, really look pretty, and it's nice to be able to show off the art in a different way. And I couldn't believe I drove by the new restaurants that are going in yesterday and saw dirt, and when I was driving home today, I see framing.
The framing's
So
already-
it's-
yeah, it's starting to
hopefully it's going to progress
take
pretty
shape.
quickly from this point on. Yeah. Okay, so with that, we're going to recess to closed session for conference.
Madam
with-
Mayor, I'm sorry, there are
something?
a few comments from staff,
Oh,
if you don't
thank you.
mind.
Please.
Just one announcement and 2 introductions. The first one, the LA County Office of Homelessness is going to conduct the homeless count in Paramount on Thursday, January 25th. That's in 2 days. They're going to deploy from Paramount Park Community Center. We do this every year. We've been allowing them to use the community center. The count's going to take place between 6 p.m. and midnight. So there are volunteers involved with this. They do go out to different places alongside the deputies to go and count the homeless. Just as a point of reference, in 2016 there were 51 homeless individuals in Paramount. In 2017 that went up to 111. So we're very interested to see what 2018 holds for us. So. With that, there are 2 introductions I'd like to quickly make. The first one is a city staff member, Ms. Diana Lopez. She's in the back. Ms. Diana Lopez is our new HR analyst. Diana has a BS, a Bachelor's in Science degree from Long Beach State University in Business Administration. She's been with the city for 4 years now. She served as a full-time assistant in administrative services, and she's performed many tasks that are human resources related. So she does have the experience there. So welcome to Diana in her new role.
Congratulations.
And the next introduction is Beat Deputy, Deputy Patrick Chapman, who's in the back. Deputy Chapman is the new Beat Deputy for Beat A. Beat A is if you live north of Somerset and west of the railroad track. So up here at the council, that's Mayor Lemons. A Deputy Chapman has been a deputy for 5 years. He's been with the Lakewood Station for 3 years. All 3 years he served working patrol here in Paramount. The majority of the time he's worked in the early morning shift, and he's briefly been a training officer, and he is now joining the SEO team. So welcome, Deputy Chapman.
Excuse me, John, do you mind if I introduce our other deputy? We thought she wasn't going to make it because she was stuck on a call.
Please.
But our new deputy here, Christina Dizon, will be starting in February as one of our SAOs. And right now, she's currently assigned to Paramount. She's been here over about 1.5 years now, and so we're all happy to have her.
Welcome. Okay, David, before I forget, on the Veterans Day event, out of the people that you talked to, you were going to coordinate with, I just wanted to remind you that Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard wants to make sure that you contact her office for help with that event. She's looking
Absolutely.
forward to it. Okay, with that, we'll recess to closed session for conference with counsel in anticipation of litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, and evaluation of public employee.